what to talk about today. I've been thinking about a few things, as I often do, and various things about where I belong and if I care. In fact, really, uh, you know, I'm very, I feel very kind of like involved with or impacted by the state of the world at times. But I try and be not so much, yeah. Nevertheless, it is there because there are things which seem to quite often face us, And I'm thinking in terms of being a pagan. Uh, and I've talked to a friend of mine about this, because there are things that do seem to sort of like really threaten us, um, particularly religiously. Um, and at the same time, I kind of think, well, where do I belong in things? And honestly, I feel really out of the apparent general consensus of the pagan community, though I understand. How do you measure that consensus? Because, like, most of it's online that you meet and see, apart from people. But then the people I meet aren't always very um, uh, enlightening, or, they don't really give you much hope. Um, And I wonder if paganism is really going to survive as it has grown in a lot of the West. Some of it, well, I'm pretty certain, but there's an awful lot which is so close to being a sort of new age fad, really, um, and so much of it has been really, really just like so hijacked by politics. Yeah. So it's like this, and this is. I'm sure this is very much an American pattern that has just swamped everything. Yeah, but it's really has just reduced things to absolute garbage. You just think, do these people actually believe in anything? Yeah, if they can put politics so high in their pagan world, if they can put it so high, do they really believe in anything? Or is it actually just politics and materialism? I seriously wonder, actually, sometimes. Um, so there's kind of like all that. And I have to say, I look at things, and the most important thing to me is to have an honest relationship with your life and with the circumstances of your life as who you actually are. And I think that's the most important thing. And so that's what I try to do. And being in my late 60s, that's actually really helpful, I find. Because a lot of things are over, which is brilliant. Yeah, it really is. You know, that's a really, really good thing. And I do realize that actually there's probably a lot of people aren't going to like what I say, aren't going to like what I think, aren't going to like what I'm oriented to, and that's absolutely fine because I really, really don't care. And things like reputation and status, they just don't mean anything. In fact, they've never meant very much to me, to be truthful. They just haven't. I mean, obviously, I've been very, very impressed by some people for what I think are good reasons. They were inspirations to me, yeah. But status, especially like this consensus sort of like, fitting in, doesn't make any sense to me at all. So none of that does anything for me. And it just doesn't register. It's just not there for me. It doesn't register. It's like, it's like funny handshakes or something. It's like no more than that. So yeah, I'm fine if I'm absolutely fine if people don't like what I say or think or what I am. It's perfectly fine because I honestly don't care. I really don't care. And sometimes it's best to just embrace that. And sometimes it's even better if people would not like you because at least you're free in that way. Um, uh, I am a pagan and I am a polytheist, and I've been a polytheist for a very long time now. Yeah. Um, uh, I sort of like, I kind of, the term diabolist, it really does describe part of me. It really does describe a lot of what I am and a major part of my orientation. But I think I've said before, um, I was a Satanist for 5 years, and there's a part of you which is always remains a Satanist. There's just a part of you which always has that. And I have to say, Satanism gave me my primary moral orientation. And it's fantastic. And my most intense work I have done with people has been with another Satanist, really. Yeah, one other Satanist, yeah. That's been my most intense spiritual work that I've done, I think. It really has. And the fact is, that kind of an orientation, whatever you want to call it, left-hand path, satanic, diabolist, is a kind of a core thing within me. And it's from there that I really most honestly engage with the world. Yeah. And find my direction in a sense. Yeah. Of course, and I think this is completely consistent with being a diabolist, I actually don't fit into even the supposed form of any kind of diabolism or Satanism or anything. Yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, that kind of is part and parcel of the deal, really. However, it's not something you talk about very much. Yeah, it's not something you particularly discuss in general. Because at base, spiritual realities are private things. They may be shared with special people, but at base, they are private things. And that's how I like to keep things. And that's how I like to do things. My art is the biggest thing that I'm doing, really. My painting. But, you know, magic has always been what my life has really been about. So everything is forms of that. I always wanted life to be art and life to be magic. And that's what I kind of tack my sails to, if you see what I mean. That's where we go. And I'm very happy with that. Anyway, this has been a little bit rambling. I hope it's been entertaining. And I wish you a very good Sunday and a good week and a very nice high summer. Now, just something I did think of adding, actually, because it's something which had occurred to me before. I'm not a moralist. That's something which is very, very clear in me. I think that's sort of really always been so. I'm not a moralist by nature. And I don't get on with moralisms or moralists. Yeah. But ethics is a fundamental of human life. Yeah. Everyone has ethical orientations. Yeah. Whoever they are, everyone has ethical orientations. And so one of the questions which really has interested me and which I kind of like work through or have worked through in certain ways, yeah, is what is your ethical orientation if you are not a moralist, yeah? So a non-moral, non-moralistic ethical orientation. And for some people that sounds crazy and it sounds like a contradiction, but I found it not to be so. And so that to me is a very, very important thing, because you have to look into what are the fundamentals of ethics for you. You have to look into its bases in consciousness for you. And you have to go back and back and back to the most fundamental bases of ethical orientation for you. So Um, that's just one very quick point I wanted to make, and it's just something which I think is I like to sort of like uh, just make a note of, really, because I think it's important. Because the trap of moralism is a a real pitfall as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, the trap of moralism, which just sort of like railroads people into things that they don't want, really, um, on the basis of moral argument and apparent moral necessity. I think these are very, very important questions, and especially as we are now facing a kind of time when I think a lot of our consensus about uh, what is a reasonable kind of life and what is the reasonable and rational and reasonable basis of life, they're kind of running aground because like an entire sort of like post-enlightenment project has kind of come crunching up against just various consequences historically of where it's gone. And so we are kind of faced with a time when you're going to see people bring up moralistic answers to these things. And I'd like the moralistic answers to actually be resisted and for us to find authentic individual answers, which is where our consciousness really flowers. I'd like us to find those kind of answers afresh to whatever it is that faces us now.